No. I have some really interesting video to play for you. This is from the Piers Morgan Uncensored show, and he clashes with left-wing political figure Taylor Lorenz, and the subject matter is intense. So I'll get to that in just a second. I do just give me a second on that. I know some of you get upset when my intro is too long before you see what I'm talking about. I'll play the clips. I just need to lay out my view on this so that then you're fully contextualized as we enter into the back and forth that they're going to have. But as everyone's been talking about, you had this murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Now we know the killer, allegedly at least, Luigi Mangione, has been arrested. And in learning about the motive is becoming pretty clear. It was about the grievances, the anger that Luigi Mangione had toward the healthcare system, specifically United Healthcare, and believing that Brian Thompson should be the person he goes after to blame for the horrific aspects of our healthcare system. Now, you know how I say that as someone on the left or as a liberal, I have to specify to people that while it's absolutely the case, people in positions of power in the Democratic Party versus Republican Party, it's a pretty clear and ridiculous to make false equivalencies about difference between the quality of Democratic politicians on average versus Republican politicians. Not because the Democratic Party is great, but because if we want to implement positive change, best shot is through the Democratic Party. And I'll say to people, there's extremism across the political spectrum on my quote-unquote side too, which is a ridiculous way to break up politics into two sides because it's a wide range of views. But in that, because I do say, yeah, I am on the left, I am liberal, I'll identify with those terms, but know that that doesn't mean every person who uses that term to describe themselves is aligned with me, obviously. And there are a lot of extremists on my side as well. But don't let that be the justification for a sort of both sidesy misunderstanding of American politics, because in our political analysis, we're able to say, all right, look at people in positions of power, and clearly extremism has been making it to the top ranks of the Republican Party in a way that it hasn't to the top ranks of the Democratic Party. But we have an example of extremism on our side, which is that in the wake of Brian Thompson, this United Healthcare insurance company CEO, being murdered, people are going, yay. Which it's strange I have to say this. Wrong reaction. And I'll get into how this is indicative of a totally whacked approach to issues of this magnitude. If you're talking about you're someone who thinks it's okay to laugh about the murder of the CEO because he's a part of the horrific broken healthcare system we have, you don't actually care as much as you think you do about the broken healthcare system. If you're emphasizing or justifying violence toward an individual instead of all of your advocacy going toward the systemic change we would need to make. And so is it the case that thousands of people die because they don't have proper health coverage? Yes. That's an absolute tragedy. Are executives at health insurance companies constantly trying to squeeze the most amount of profit out of people? And do their decisions lead to devastation in the lives of people? Yes. Does that make it morally acceptable to murder such an executive? Absolutely not. And even by their standard, it's counterproductive, which we'll get into later. So while Piers Morgan lately has been horrible on this issue, he is correct. He'll play here the back-to-back examples of what people have been saying in response to this murder by Luigi Mangione, who is justifying his actions, or trying to, he's rhetorically justifying them. And we've seen this in his past writings and social media activity by pointing to the broken healthcare system. And you'll see people react to that. Then we'll get to Taylor Lorenz, who seems to be far too gleeful about this.
Reaction in some quarters has been almost celebratory.
I saw someone say this is like finding out about Robin Hood in the 1300s. Like every new update that comes from this guy, I'm like, that's so sick.
Deny, depose, defend. If that isn't a loud, clear message to all these CEOs across the board of these health insurance companies, I don't know what is.
We feel like we're living parallel lives with the elite in our country.
When you see the entire internet, left and right, united around one thing, and that is celebrating, I hate to say it too, the death of a healthcare CEO, you have to ask why. And I don't think that has been discussed at all.
Well, we'll discuss that.
And then I'll skip over to the part where they directly address each other. Again, you have the individual morality of murder with no due process. And, taking the law or whatever into your own hands, and political violence and the immorality of all that we go through a lot. When Trump, however bad I think he is attacked, I also think he's wrong, right? That type of stuff. But then what I find really interesting too, because it's almost like play their game for a second and they still lose it. If you're saying that you're on the left and that's why you think it's okay to joke about this or justify it because it's in the interest of fixing healthcare injustices, you're really wrong about that, which we'll get to. But here's this.
Healthcare executive down with party balloons was on a next post that you commented on. Why would you be in such a celebratory mood about the execution of another human being? Aren't you supposed to be on the caring, sharing left where, you believe in the sanctity of life?
I do believe in the sanctity of life. And I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunately, because it feels like...
Serious?
I mean...
Joy in a man's execution?
Maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy. Because again,
we're watching the footage. How can this make you joyful? This guy's a husband, he's a father, and he's being gunned down in the middle of Manhattan. Why does that make you joyful?
Thousands of Americans that be murdered. So are the tens of thousands of Americans, innocent Americans, who died because greedy health insurance executives like this one push policies of denying care to the most vulnerable people. And the many millions of Americans that have watched people that I care about suffer and in some cases die because of lack of health care.
So should they all be killed then? Should they all be killed, these healthcare executives? Would that make you even more joyful?
No, that would not.
But why not?
And,
why are you laughing?
I think because it wouldn't fix the system.
You seem to find the whole thing hilarious.
And then I will skip over to the climax of Piers saying this.
Piers.
Yeah, Taylor, I don't mean to be rude, but why the fuck are you laughing all the time? I don't get it. Sorry, apologies for my language, but honestly, I find it unbelievable. What are you laughing at?
Piers, I am laughing at Tommy's insane mischaracterization.
All right, and this led to the media headline, "Why the F are you laughing?" Piers Morgan snaps after Taylor Lorenz says she felt joy at CEO's killing. It's so weird we have to... It's like after the assassination attempt of Trump, and I wanted to explain to people, because clearly there was a misunderstanding about it, why it's so important we oppose political violence, but I was confused as to why I had to, why that was a need. But then on this, the two parts again. On an individual level, extrajudicial killings of people is immoral. And actually death penalty as well, my personal stance, but we can, across political lines, with the first thing I said, agree. And then what's the argument from them even? Did Brian Thompson do things as a part of his role as CEO at United Healthcare that I'd find horrible? Probably. So then the way that you solve a system that allows for such behavior is killing someone who, by even in their head, that then someone else runs the company and also prioritizes profit over anything else. That's kind of how we got here. So now you have a devastated family. You still have all the devastated families based on our broken healthcare system. And we've made no progress on the issue you say you care about. And actually, you choosing to mislead people is proof that maybe you don't actually care and you're just wanting some weird, bizarre, visceral satisfaction. Because if you actually cared, what I said to the guys when covering this, if Luigi, the shooter, clearly is willing to dedicate his whole life to this cause in the most deranged of ways, if Luigi would have just dedicated his life to working to change systemically in a public policy way our broken healthcare system, you could make a bunch of difference doing that, whereas he made no difference as it pertains to the injustices with healthcare, but he did make a difference in leaving children without a father and a wife without a husband. So what's justified here? What's productive here? And how do you not see that in a civilized society, as Governor of Pennsylvania Josh Shapiro will say in a second here, that the second we go, you know what? Yeah, maybe when you disagree with the private or public actions of people in positions of power, maybe you just kill them. That's not how we do it in a civilized society. And it doesn't solve any of the problems that they even say they want to solve. So now you're just, because I just explained to you how it doesn't solve any systemic problems. So now you have to argue that you just like it because you think vigilante death penalty is good. Whew. Here's Governor of Pennsylvania.
This killer was not a hero. He should not be hailed. Mr. Thompson, I understand, was laid to rest earlier today in Minnesota in a private setting. As the conversation continues about this case, let's be mindful not to dehumanize him and make him just an avatar of a system that is disliked by many. He was a father, he was a husband, and he did not deserve to die like this on a sidewalk in New York City. I again want to thank all law enforcement who's present.
It really does make me question the thoughtfulness of any of the people I see alluding to this take. I mean, are you thinking at all about actually making positive change in the world? Or is it just you take thing one vibe at a time? Which it's interesting because my visceral vibe when I see someone get murdered, this is so crazy. You guys are going to think it's so crazy. I go, no. I'll admit it. I don't like when I see people get murdered. Okay, crazy stuff. But the reason is because, especially with this type of policy, political related adjacent violence, it flies in the face of our principles, right? Completely. It's like what I said with Trump. And it also, as I keep coming back to, which is just mind-boggling, even if that were your initial vibe of sort of, he had it coming, how do you think this does anything positive? Do you understand how systems work? The individual income inequality, our issue in this country with income inequality is not about Jeff Bezos as a human being. It's not about Elon Musk as an individual person and he's the problem. It's about a system. And we address the systemic problems. We don't have to harm any of the folks who represent our symptoms of the systemic problems, and we can address those issues. Obviously, I don't get the logic here. And I've seen people saying, why are people more outraged about the killing of this healthcare CEO than outraged about the thousands of people have died because of our messed up system. Why can't we be outraged about both and triple outraged that arguing this framework that emphasizes the individual bad actor, if they're identified as such, over the bad system in a way that will never get you positive change ever, makes me triple outraged. So stop it. I know my audience wouldn't be doing that, hopefully, but that's what's been going on. Some crazy, crazy stuff. And that's an example of when I say crazy people on social media be crazy, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can both sides the issue of extremism in our political discussions. This is what I mean. You're not going to see a Democratic politician apologizing for this violence, like Republican politicians apologize for violence against Democrats, as we've gone through, like Paul Pelosi. But you will see random people online, and that's why I like defining exactly what my principles are and what my movement is, as opposed to just being grouped with any old person who likes to use a term that happens to be one I use to describe myself. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, unless they're crazy, and get the bonus show by clicking that join button below.